Did you know that over 11 million tons of textile waste is destined for the landfill each year? This video will show you one person's mission to reduce some of that waste ending up in the landfill. She takes that fabric and makes it into reusable totes so that it's still repurposed and still has a life to it. Just as a reminder, we are soliciting donations for this production. Everything you see here was donated by the artisans themselves, whether it was the URL, the website, all the production costs. If you feel generous, try to give back to those artisans because they really put their heart and soul into bringing this alive for you. So not only that, but a portion of those donations will be given to CNY Arts to pay it forward to other artisans as part of their Restart the Arts campaign, where it really helps those struggling artists from the effects of COVID and what happened to their businesses. So, like I said, if you want to help support this cause, definitely go to the website, bespokeartcraft.com, go to the Support the Artisans page, click on the donate button, and choose whatever level feels comfortable for you to help support this artisans, but also to pay it forward to other artisans. So as you're watching this video, again, make sure if you have some questions, jot them down, send them to info@bespokeartcraft.com. We'd be happy to answer them during a live Zoom session on Saturday night, October 23rd, where you can join a panel of artisans and have your questions answered live.
You want to have something that's a little more fun and makes you smile instead of just something drab that people, if you're going to use it every day, why not have it be fun and make you smile and make you enjoy life that little bit more? The name Rhinestone Lifestyle came from the phrase diamond dreams on a rhinestone budget. So it's a way of making everyday items in your life a little more fun while also making them more wallet and eco-conscious. We have a cutting mat, a ruler, and the rotary cutter, and they all go together. So the mat here has your inch guidelines, so does your ruler, and when you put your fabric down, the cutting mat is going to protect your work surface. Your ruler is going to make sure you're keeping with your line. And then this rotary cutter works way better for long cuts than scissors. And you're just going to take your rotary cutter and go along the line, and your ruler makes sure you stay on line and you make your cuts. So I'm going to take out this white that I was using previously and put this white thread. This cone of thread away. So we'll put the cone there. Move these out of the way here. You have to make sure your thread's in the right direction. Come up over here. Down, around, down again, through this, and now I thread the needle. Ready. So this is one of our two handles. And we're just gonna sew the length. I gotta make sure my stitch length is right. I'm on straight stitch. Okay. So I start right from the beginning with the fabric. The majority of the fabric I work with comes from dead stock, overstock, remnants, any kind of reclaimed fabric. So it's still new, but it's not being used otherwise. So it might have ended up in a landfill had I not rescued it and created something else with it. So the tote bags are usually made out of upholstery fabric or some sort of home decor fabric. So if you don't have enough left to cover a couch, for example, but there's still good fabric left, I can make a bunch of bags out of that. And they're heavy duty because it's heavy duty fabric. I often see a fabric and I just have an idea for it right away. So I'll see a fabric and go, that needs to be some tote bags, or that would make a really cute pet bandana, or you know, that would be so fun for scrub caps if you worked with kids. Walking in with that pattern would make their day, you know, like something about it. Or I know the person that would love that pattern. Just something about it says, you need to make something for me. And the first half of a French seam, so you sew it twice for reinforcement. My edges are zigzag just to keep the unraveling of the fabric to a minimum. It's easier for me, it's nicer, you don't have as many stray threads. I did the first seam, and now I pressed it with the iron, and I can feel where the end is, and I'm putting a few pins in here just to keep my line going. There we go. I got started in the winter of 2019 into 2020. I knew the plastic bag ban was going to start in New York State, and my mom had made these reusable grocery totes back in the 90s, and they were still going strong, and they were fun pattern fabrics, and I just decided I could not let my friends and family have ugly bags that wouldn't last for very long. And so I started making tote bags. And then 2020 did all of its 2020-ness, and it evolved into scrub caps for my friends that were in the healthcare field, into masks for everyone that I knew, and kind of continued from there. And our core product is still the tote bags. Well, there are some measurements written out there. So on this side, I think my mom actually went in with a marker because it's slightly darker color. And that's where a lot of my seams end up being 5/8. But I also have a feel of where the edge of the inside seam is. Around, you don't see anything, and it's double sewn, so even if a stitch does pop one day, you've still got that backup seam. So now I'm gonna go cut out some corners and we'll make some boxed bottoms. I'm gonna have to do both, but yeah. Sew the bottom, or sew the boxed part to the bottom so you don't have flaps on your bag, and it's a nice solid. It also reinforces the seam too. So we are gonna pin. Just making, I have my hand on the other side to make sure it's nice and flat on the other side. these are different types of needles, and that'll depend on what type of project and what type of fabric you're working with. So a lot of times I use these universal needles, and you'll see down here there's different sizes, different numbers. So like a 14, 14, 16, and 12. And that also depends on what kind of fabric you're working with. So the lighter and airier fabric you're using, the smaller number that you want. But because I work with a lot of heavy duty fabrics, I have, you know, 16s for denim and 14s for most of my home decor fabrics and 12s, and this is a special type of point for working with jersey and knit fabrics. I have two kinds of scissors. These are your standard fabric straight edge scissors. I use this all the time. These are pinking shears. So pinking shears, if you can see, have this triangle shape, and that's to help certain types of fabrics from raveling as much. I grew up in a family with lots of crafters, lots of sewers. I had lots of homemade outfits growing up. Both of my grandmothers were sewers and crafters. One grandmother actually worked in a fabric shop, and the other one was a professional seamstress in a factory that sewed school uniforms. So I saw a lot of sewing and crafting growing up. I had a lot of kids' kits, you know, learning basic stitches, and I remember I had a book, and one of the pages you would sew along a maze, so you learned all your corners. And both my grandmothers had sewing machines. My one grandmother has one that's literally built into a cabinet because it was so big and special, and it was just, that's where it lives now. The old singers, there's a foot pedal one someone in the family had. I do remember that. I never got to play with that one, but my mom had a smaller travel sewing machine, and I could use that one sometimes. And then in my 20s, for Christmas, my mom got me my own machine, and that way I didn't have to mess up hers. I had my own, and I could do more because I didn't have to wait until I was visiting to sew. I could sew at home. And I did all kinds of projects on that one, and then I upgraded to this little one here. I say little, it's heavy duty. So it's very good for all of these heavy duty tote bags and projects like that. I decided to make pet beds and give them to the SPCA. Kind of in honor of our family dog. We had a little Westie named Madison, and she was wonderful, and she's part of the reason I started making pet bandanas. And when it came around to what would have been our 16th birthday, my parents and I wanted to do something nice, and so we got 16 dog toys, and we got a bag of dog food and some other supplies, and we brought that to the local SPCA. And so I thought this would be another nice way to use every scrap of fabric, make sure nothing ends up in a landfill, and give back. I like to use, this is very multifunctional, so I use it as a guide for where I put my handles as well. So this is a Singer heavy duty machine, and it's got a bunch of different stitches. That's this dial here. So your straight stitch, your zigzag, and some other more specialty stitches, including a buttonhole stitch. And this dial is going to tell you how long your stitch is. If you want really tiny stitches, then you have it closer to 1. You have 0 for buttonhole, where your thread is right on top of each other. Or you can make it really large and long 4 stitches. There's different dials where you want your needle positioned, or how you want your tension to be. And then you have 2 threads on this machine. A basic machine has 2 threads. You have your bobbin thread, and you would normally see a small spool of thread up here, but because I'm using a cone, I have a holder in the back for the cone thread. And so those 2 threads get woven through the machine, and down here you have your presser foot and your needle, and you go to town. One of the things I like to do for extra strength is when I go over the strap, I go over and then back and forward again. So it gets triple stitched, especially since you're not really going to see these stitches as much. It just makes sense to me to make it as strong as possible. So there's a lot of different kinds of thread you can use, and they come on different kinds of spools. So for example, a lot of times I use these cones of thread. This one is actually worn down a lot because I've used a lot of black recently. And there are smaller spools of thread, which is what you're probably more used to seeing. In general, most people are probably going to use an all-purpose thread, but there are specialty threads. For example, I have a button sewing thread that's a lot stronger and thicker to make sure your button stays on your coat. There are specific types of ways of dyeing, so you can get threads that are ombre, where you have multiple colors on the same thread. You can get metallic threads, special embroidery threads. It just depends on the type of project you're doing. So this customer came up to me at a market, saw this tote bag that was a celestial print, and it spoke to him. He likes all of the, celestial and astronomy and things of that nature, and just decided that bag needed to be his. And that's what I love about this. You find something that speaks to you and is going to make your day happy. Yeah, so my mom made a bunch of reusable tote bag sets, like I said, back in the 90s, and she gave a set to my grandmother, and we had a set in my family growing up. I think just so we weren't using as many plastic bags. We would bring them to the grocery store when really no one else was using reusable bags. And my grandma's set is from, I think, 1994, and it's still going strong. So that's why I knew this would be something good that people could use for a long time. Okay, that's all. With my dream client would be Elton John. I love Elton John. I used to have a nickname because of Elton John. And when I was a kid, my dad would come home from work and get out his record collection, and he had all of Elton's albums from the 70s on vinyl. And I'd look at the album art, and as soon as I could read, I was trying to read lyrics. And I was probably the only 5-year-old who knew all the words to Madonna because she was on the radio, and then Elton John. And then when it comes to packaging, I use as much recycled and recyclable packaging as possible. I found a company that specializes in that, and so that's where all of the bags for the market, all of my shipping bags, all of that comes from. It's including the labels. Even labels are recyclable. All done.
enjoyed this presentation by Rhinestone Lifestyle. And if you want to support this artisan specifically, definitely go to their website, rhinestonelifestyle.com, and check out what they have to offer. She's got a newsletter sign up, so go ahead, put your name on that newsletter email list. And she's offering a special discount for viewers of this Bespoke Art and Craftsmanship Summit. If you use the word Bespoke 2021 between now and November 21st, she'll give you 20% off any order over $20. So go on her website, check out the different totes, see if there's something there that maybe you can give as a holiday present, maybe a coworker, a boss, somebody that could really use a really fun pattern to brighten their day and help save the environment at the same time by using that reclaimed fabric that was destined for the landfill. Just a reminder, we have another video coming up tomorrow. It's Upcycling for a Cause with Rob. He is phenomenal. He goes and takes bicycles that are pretty much destroyed and makes all sorts of art using the bicycle chains, the tires, the tire rims, any part you can possibly think of with a bicycle, he does something with. And it's really mind-blowing in that instance because you're like, how could you even come up with this? But the things he comes up with are truly unique and different and great for any bike enthusiasts.